Hi guys, hope everybody is well. Live Thursday show. I'm working in Imagimorphia today, and I used my set of 24 watercolors for this. When I did it in the book, but I want to do the watercolor effect, so I'm just sorting out some 3 rigger paintbrushes. I think is going to be the order of the day. So that should work well. Got my live chat on, so everything's sorted. I will zoom in a smidgen when I start. See how we go in there. Let's see what that looks like. Just need to look at automatic focus. I can move the camera slightly. Just look at. So when you have automatic focus on, it drives you nuts. It's a bit slow, the camera today. That's better. So I shall work at that side and then focus as I move. I can't move the camera. I can move the camera a little bit. So it's at this side. That's slightly better. I have to be careful because it's on my chair, so it'll be wobbly. I don't want wobble. So let's have a look and see what happens when we do that. You can see old Alfie's got all his tennis balls out on the floor. So we could zoom in one. I normally start down here, so that's probably where I'm going to be working. And I got a bit confused with the last one, so I've gone back to my original Kirby Roseanne method, which is pick one leaf and go all the way through with that one leaf, then pick something else out and go all the way through, because what I end up doing is I'll start one green and I'll forget which green I'm doing. Now I've got my Inktense blocks, I've got my Inktense pencils, and I've got my Inktense watercolors, but I used those last time, so I kind of want something a bit stronger, but I do want a watercolor effect. So what I thought I might do is my scratch and go, which is scratch a little bit of colour. If I scratch a bit of colour with the Inktense pencils, and then activate it with the rigger to make the watercolor effect. And this is what I was saying for a few Christmases ago, that you could, if you have some nice watercolor media, you can put it on in little spaces and then give the book as a present with all the colors already on for somebody that's elderly or for a child. And they can just then have a little water brush and then they can just activate it. And you don't have to give them your best pencils. So I would have done that for my children when they were younger. I would have, excuse me, Jessie, Alfie, you should know, Alfie should know better than to get up behind, up close. And so I've got all my brushes into this. Now I love this, but every time I pick it up, they fly everywhere. So I haven't quite worked out the best way. This particular little brush set came with the traveling pens, but I've put all my riggers in here, and I did have them all organized, and then I moved them and I got everything out. Alfie Cross, Alfie, hold up. So I've got my Daler Rowney graduate pens because I kind of like those. So I've got a number 1, and I say I do want to try and keep them together. Most of these are in 3s. I think a 2 is going to be too big, actually. Oh, it might not be for bigger spaces. And then I have a 5-0, but it's a series 55. So if you look at a rigger and a series 55, that's Alfie just below. There's not much in it, so they'll both do that. And I do like the series 55 because they have a 10-0. They call it a liner. That's shot. That most of mine are now because it's my one favorite brush that I go to every time. So I've got 3, and that one's all right. What I probably will do is cut the splayed ones off. That's a 10-0 as well. I normally buy 2 or 3 at a time of these. They're about $1.99, so I normally buy quite a few. Now that's a half rigger, but I actually like, there's a bit of a tail on that one because they do actually go, that's actually quite a nice one today to use. Again, what you need to do is look at your brushes and look at your spaces. So this would be far too small to do this one, but it would be perfect to do the little mushrooms. And I want a mediocre one, so I want something like a 5-0. And there's a 2, but that's a half rigger. I normally like that one as well. Sometimes you have to mix and match. I never actually look what they're called anymore. I look at the tips. It's not very often I actually look what they are. When I'm choosing a paintbrush, I normally try to, and that's a half, that's a 5. So I've got too many here, so we'll get rid of those. So I've got that one and that one. They're very similar, those two. So I've got a rigger, a Daler rigger, a 2 and a 1, and then I've got a series 55.5. I've got a half rigger number 2, a half rigger 2-0, and then I've got the liner, which is a 10-0. So I need a slightly bigger one for these areas here. But again, it's only paper, so you have to be a little bit careful about not over wetting. But you find if you use a rigger, that's fine. If you wanted to use a water brush, I'll tip it out. If you touch with water, you whoosh, you get a big expanse of colour and water, and we don't want that because this paper doesn't do that. And I want a watercolour effect, and that's why I want to use those. Oh, hi guys, welcome to Bunny's Design. So I've got a little pot here that I'm going to fill with water. It looks a bit rusty, but I don't know. Just have to make it a bit damp. And then I'm going to trap a wipe underneath it because I do need a baby wipe today because we are working barely damp. And when you're working barely damp with a rigger, we want it so we get the watercolour effect. So we don't want too much water, but we want a little bit. So hopefully just that's going to give me what I want. So dunk in the water, twist, pick up, and then away you go. And I'm going to have to move the camera back because if I'm going to be catching it all the time, it will drive everybody insane. So you might see a fluffy tail pushing about. Oh, he's asleep there. There's the boy who's actually gone to sleep. There he is. So hopefully we have a quiet afternoon. So I'm going to pick out the toadstools first. I just can't decide if I want to do, I think I'll do the touch and go. So this is my Derwent, oh, I forgot what it's called. It's the one with the gorilla on the front. and I put my Inktense ones in here. And what I was doing was I put the light fast ones at the front. Oh, thank you. You get your tie?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, then. I can't say have a good day, can I?
No, I'll be back. Sorry, that's true.
Okay, darling, don't rush. Probably going to a funeral, unfortunately. So when I looked online, the Inktense pencils, there's the Derwent color guide, and it tells you how light fast they are. So I think it's six and above. 6 and below is light fast. I've got one there. Is there any life in that one? 6 and above is light fast. Sorry, 6 and below is light fast. So unless it's 4. Oh, I can't remember now. But that's what the 3 and the 5s are. Yes, it's 6 and above, isn't it? Because sherbet lemon. Where are the reds? The reds are 5s, so there were no reds. I think it's 6 and above. Alfie, that's naughty. Alfie, if you're going to do this, you go in the kitchen. Alfie, my word. Get in there. Get on there now. Get on there. That's naughty. It's 6 and above, I've realised. Anything 6 is not light fast. So the sherbet lemon one is there, and I think there was a couple of yellows, but I only had one red, so I pinched one of the 5s because it was the fuchsia one I used because I needed a pink and the poppy red. The others aren't particularly light fast. Now, this may have changed because they've brought out the other watercolours which are light fast, but this is my vintage set because they're rounds and they're all cracked. And the round ones came out quite a long time ago. So I had a set of round ones, and then I bought the other set to make them up. And they're kind of hexagonal. They've got ridges on them. So my set, but it's very old, is this set, and I keep saying to myself I'll buy a new set, but I don't really need one because although they're chipped, I've renamed them because the names were coming off, so I've renamed them, so I don't need really a new set. I saved myself a lot of money by photocopying this. And then now the one thing you do need when you're using these is the color guide, because when you look at the tip, you can't see these purples. They all look black, and all these browns and greys, they all look the same. And on the other side, again, all the blues, they all look the same. So you need the color guide. So I use my book of watercolors, and I've dropped that down now. I'm using the same sticky tape because I made a mistake and I used hospital tape, which is extremely sticky. So let's put that back on there. So I need to do this because I don't like it. Oh no, that's not it. I haven't got it. I don't know where it is. Sorry guys, I'm just going back in a second. There's going to be barks. There we have got that. So I've got mine in my little photo album book, photographs, and I've split it open and put my colours inside. My Derwent watercolor pencils, 72. I've got my Derwent Inktense, I've got my Graphitint, I've got my Neocolor 2s, and I have my Peerless. And this is a little book that I take with a watercolor brush. And again, that's touch and go, kind of small size, but that gives me quite a few hundred colors. Oh, the book is Imagimorphia, but it's the poster size. They brought out the Kirby Roseannes. These were very wonderfully sent to me by Melody. There's Animorphia and Imagimorphia, and they brought them out in poster size. And basically, it's most of them. I think I did a book flip on the first poster size one that I did, and it's the double page spreads. It's the double page spreads, and what they've done obviously is because we've got them on A2 size, A3, sorry. We've lost a little bit because the Kirby's weren't A4 size. They were square. They were 10 inches. So we've lost a couple of inches off the side, but the seam in the middle. So I've got that one, and I've pulled out the other one as well to do today, is the bunnies. And that one is the first one that I did with professional watercolors, with 6 colors. I just buy 6 colors. So I have my little book. In fact, I work from my little book. You can work 2 ways. These are my ink 10s. So I could take this with, as I say, I've got 72 pencils. I did have more than 600 squares in here. And I think I had 500 squares plus some. And there are 10 shades and tones for every one. So that's 6,000 colours in this little A4, A6, I think it is. It's 4 by 6 inch for photographs. And I've split them. So the page, instead of putting a photograph in, I've split them. And I'm using the plastic. It's so much easier than having to put plastic in every one. But I don't like it because I don't like the plastic. So I'm going back to this one. I brought them here. Of them. I think I bought 10 actually for giveaways, but then I didn't do that. So it's 4 by 6 photographs. And basically it's from they're from Paper Chase, so they're very nice quality. Sorry about the rattle. And the plastic is nicer, but these are top loading, whereas the other one was top loading, where this one is side loading when you do it like that. So instead of putting a photograph in there, I'm going to put a piece of paper. In between each one, you put another piece of paper. And there's quite a few videos of how I make my little book, but I like this one better because it's a bit nicer quality. And also on here, I can use it as a palette. Because this plastic is quite rigid, you can use it as a palette. So in between each page, you've got a palette. So I think the best to do is, oh, hi Melody. Anybody else popping in? So that's why I quite like that. Oh, here's the new girl on the block. Hi guys. Here's her name, Frankie. Hi Frankie. Good morning, darling. She's a very good girl. She's like an Alsatian, but she's got short legs. So she should be up here, but she isn't. She's down there. And she's our Romanian girl. So Alfie's asleep. Turn that slightly. You can see the Alf Master. And there she goes. And Alfie's put all his toys everywhere. Just come up a little bit. So I can't decide whether to. I think I'll scratch this using the ink 10s pencils from here. and you've got a lot more control. So when you're using the end of a pencil, you kind of just get the full color. But when you use them from a paper palette, you get 10 tones and 10 shades from every pencil. So there's 72, so that's 720 colors that I have when I get to my ink tints. Because we have in the ink tints ones, we have the teal greens and the dark aquas and the beautiful purpley blues. So we've got some gorgeous colors, and I tend to put them in sixes. It makes quite a good square, and the reason I do that is because you kind of get I've got different ones in this particular set because I've put my Prismacolors and my other watercolor pencils, the good quality ones, all together. So I've got a lot more. But basically, these are you've lemons, you've got oranges, you've got your reds, and then you've got your pink reds. And then we've got the cooler blues, the teal colors. And I have my greens, I have my dark greens and my olives, my warm browns and my cool browns and my greys. And so 6 work quite well in a set of 72. Oh, thank you, Melody. Thank you. I woke up a couple of days with my headache back because I've not stuck to the strict low purine diet. So it's taking its toll. So when you work from here, there's quite a few videos of me working from this book. You'll see how you can get 10 shades. Whereas when you're touching the end of the pencil, you're kind of a bit restricted to, you touch that, you get full color. Now it's going to be a bit difficult to work with this today. I'm sure it's going to be difficult. 10 blocks, but I think I'll do another one with that. You see at the end here, you can't see what's out, so you do need the color guide. I go through this color guide and think, okay, then I want something like this. I want that color, or I want that color. If it's a blue, I want a green. I want that color or that color. So it gives me a rough idea of how strong I need it. And again, you can work from a paper palette just scratching a bit of color if you want. You can scratch 2 or 3 colors together if you want. That's another way I was going to work, but I don't think I'm going to do that today. I'm going to do a simple way. A simple way. So I need, this is my color guide. And I don't have any points on mine because I don't really need too many points. I used my pencil sharpener to show how, and I do have it with me, but I don't tend to sharpen the pencils because you waste too much of the pigment. So the first one I want to look at, I want a red. The poppy red is here. Flick that over. And they're a bit too pinky. So I think I'll go for poppy red. So you can work 2 ways. You can work from a paper palette. You can find poppy red and each individual little one, and you can put the tiniest little bit of color. I'll zoom in and you can see what we're going to do. Now, unfortunately, we've got workmen next door, so I'm not sure how that's going to affect this video. So I scratched a little bit here, and I always think this is the best way to work. Sorry guys, I'm going to zoom out in a second. figures today, Melody. Video, I went through all the different ones I've got, because we've got some big spaces and we've got some small tiny spaces. So I've actually not got 3. I've got, although you could get away with that one, and the 0.5 and the number 2. So I've got slightly bigger, that one, isn't it? So you could get rid of those 2. I'll work with those 2. I think those 3 rather. Normally you only need 3, and if you buy them, buy every other number, because if you buy 2 the same, there's not much difference. But if you buy every other number, you get a good. So that'd be a 2, a 0, and a 0.5 would be good. I've got 0.10, 0.502, bigger one here. The number 1 brush would be quite good, but we've got a big space there. So so I'm going to go over and pick, just scratch a little bit of colour. So you could fill it all in, very strong colour, but I want a little bit of a watercolour effect. And you've got the Inktense pencils are very strong. So we're just using a bit of a, not even a pinhead, smaller than a pinhead size, depending on what we've got. So I'm looking for more toadstools, because Kirby's very good at hiding toadstools. You forget what they are. The other thing you could do is use a piece of paper. I just haven't got one. And you could scratch a bit of red and put poppy red, or put the number. I normally put the number, and put toadstools, or even just put poppy red, because you can only see certain reds in here. So you can do yourself a colour guide. You come back in a few years, which is what I've done. You can't remember what you used, or I can't. And instead of spending ages trying to work it out, it's just quite good to have a reference. So about a pinhead size. I've got a bit of a thick head today, so these aren't working quite as good. I always thought there were more toadstools in here hidden. But this is how I used to traditionally do a Kirby. And then I know that I've got most of them that way. You will find some you've missed. So that's my poppy red, which I'm going to put away. So now for the big leaf, this big one here. So I'm going to look at the greens. I do like Hooker's Green and Spring Green. Hooker's Green is one of my favourites. So again, if I want the highlight on the inside, I'm going to put a little bit here down the middle. Just a little scratch. That's all you need. And if you want to do that, you can take that up. But I actually think these are really strong. I can't remember. I haven't used them for a while. And again with this one. And we have this big one here is about the same kind of thing. Do I think that one's the same? That's slightly different. This is the same. So you could do the whole book like this while you're watching TV, and then give it to somebody for Christmas or for a birthday, or if it's anybody in a nursing home or in hospital for a while, you could do this, and then all they need is a water brush. And the best one, I think, is the Derwent number 1, because it doesn't give you too much water, so you can get a watercolour effect. So I'm looking for these big. Thank you. The other trouble with Frankie is she thinks she's a Chihuahua, but she's quite big. So, I mean, you could do this while you were watching TV, or you could do this in the car, and then do the delicate work afterwards when you're at home, or you get your tea destination. So to be a bit careful with this one, because I want this one to go into, that's a different leaf. I want it to go into something else, but I'm just going to put a bit of a scratch. Again, you are going to miss them because it's a Kirby and he likes to hide things from you. But if you get the majority of them, you've got a good idea of what you're doing. And because I'm putting different amounts of green in, you will get slightly different things. What's wrong, Frankie? Sit down, darling. I think she's got on the sofa, so she'll... No, sit down. Good girl. Sit down. Sit down. Lie down. There's a good girl. Lie down there. Lie down. Lie down. That's it. Down. Haven't quite got down yet, but we're getting there. Good girl. She's normally really good today, and they just slept on the other sofa. She's a bit of a big girl, so she likes to kind of rush about a bit. So, and she doesn't like the central heating. It gets on her nerves a bit. So I think I've got all those. So that's the hooker's green going back. There's an apple green. Ionian, I kind of like an iron green. Again, what I should be doing is looking here because I forgot I didn't look here. So that's my hooker's green. Beach green is quite nice. This is a darker one. And then there's a pale one, which is apple. And I do like that one to be pale, I think. No, it's that one that I like. So I'm going to pick apple green for that one. So apple green, I usually do them with a scalpel or a knife and leave all that beautiful colour on the end there, because you don't really need a point. So again, this so that we've got a bit of a little bit of that. So we've got some more down here. So I say it's a really good idea to do for children, because obviously if you don't want your children to have your near colours or your favourite watercolour pencils, you can do this for them, and then they can colour in just as you do, and they don't know the difference. Because there's nothing worse than children thinking they're not doing what you're doing. And I'm bound to find some more of these. Have to work your way through because Kirby likes to hide things. I think that might be a rock. There's one there and one there. Now that's a variegated one, so I could do something slightly different with that one, but I don't think I will. So just a bit of a scribble. And I think, I don't know what that one is. If I don't know what it is, I leave it till the end, because otherwise you can turn around and think it's, oh my goodness, I've just coloured a beak in green. Because underneath, the other thing about you've got all the leaves and all the flora and fauna done, all the little creatures and animals all pop out, and so you actually find a lot more creatures, and what you thought was a leaf ends up being a wing or a beak or something. Because Kirby's quite sneaky that way. So I've got all those. I've got a different green, but I think I'm going to do the flowers next. I've got this flower here. We've got this one here, which could be an opened one, or it could be the same. And that's a different one again. And then that's one of those. That's a bigger one. Again, you want 4 or 5 different colours for the flowers. So I'm going to pick this one, and I think I'm going to do that one an orange. Now, you're not too bad with your oranges. You can see what you've got. Sienna gold is a lovely colour. Cadmium orange, tangerine. And again, if you're not sure, because the case they just look like a dead colour, go to the oranges and we can see tangerine is here, cadmium orange, Tangerine's a nice flowered one. Then there's a deep vermilion, scarlet, and red poppy. Well, I've used red poppy once, so I may not use that again. So I think I'm going to go for tangerine. And again, I'm just going to scratch a little bit of colour at the bottom. Oops, that's probably a bit too much. I do want this to be very pale. If you want it to be stronger, put more colour on. But you'll find with the Inktense pencils, they're very, very strong. I think I'm going to do that a different colour. Need a good pair of eyes for this because it's almost like doing a jigsaw puzzle. So I found a couple of butterflies. I'm going to do that flower different. There's some bluebells, so we can do those different. And I think that's a different flower. And that's that flower. Some are joined up, some aren't joined up. So again, it's whatever you want to do. I think I'm going to do that one orange as well. So again, just a small amount. So I'll put the tangerine away. So I think I like this one. I think I'm going to do that one, cadmium orange. So this one I'm just going to put a pinhead at the bottom of each. Now, again, I'm not sure if that's a leaf or a petal or a piece of bark, so I'm going to leave that. There's another one. So not quite the size of a, maybe just a bit of a pinhead size. This one looks very similar. Again, it's the case of just taking your time, picking things out. Now that's a different one. So I'm going to do that in yellow, I think. That one is the bigger one. That might be yellow. That's a. I might do that one a different color because it's slightly different. That's a different one. I think this is one of these. So again, we just want a little bit on each side. This is what takes the time. And again, you say you could do this while you're watching TV because you don't need to concentrate too much. No, I'm just going to have a look what the cadmium yellow one. I think I want cadmium yellow on that one. You don't have to do it like this. You can do it as I did last week. Just pick a color and go for it. It's just I always found, and I forgot this time, that you get in a bit of a. I've just found another toadstool, so I'll pick poppy red out. Found another toadstool. I don't know if anybody else works like this. Oh, hi Gary, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Hi Melody. Hi Becky's colour. Anybody else popping in? I'm just having a bit of a scratch, so you can see my. And the other thing about this is you're not going to do too much damage while you're doing this. So if you are in the car and you make a bit of a slip, it's not too bad. It's only, you can actually erase it. When I do the water, I can erase it. And before you, see if I can do that. I've lost my eraser and I found it today. See if we can get a colour off. That one. You can take a bit off. Now with the Derwent watercolour pencils, you can erase it at this time. This doesn't do it quite as well, but if it's too strong, you can take it off. And these are going to be strong colours. They will be strong colours because this is Inktense pencils. And they do tend to be quite strong. That I'm going to do that one a purpley pink, I think. The only difficult thing about this is you cannot build the colors up as you go along. So that when I did last week, I do a color and then I do a color next to it and then I build it up. This way, you can't see what it's going to look like until you activate the colors. But after a couple, the best thing to do is to photocopy and have a bit of a play. And then eventually you will know what your particular colors can do. The Derwent watercolor pencils, they're nicer. I shouldn't say nicer, but I mean they're slightly better quality than other watercolor pencils. The difference is the pigment. So they'll still work, but the pigment won't probably be as strong. So you might want to put extra color in. I mean, the other thing you can do is scratch all the greens and then activate them. And then you can see the drawing, the colouring come up, and then you know what colours to put next to it. This way is, as I say, scratch and save. So I can actually do that if you want. I'll do that now. Let's dunk the brush in water. And that's actually rusty, so that didn't work because this is for oils, really. So, and the beauty of this way is you only need 1 pot of water because it never gets dirty. Because what you're doing is you've got a damp brush and you're activating the colour and moving it about. And you've picked up colour now. But what happens is it's the opposite to the chameleon pens. Chameleon pens go like dark to light. The light to dark, these go dark to light. So you selfie. If I move the camera just there. So you've got to do it immediately. If you talk, you have to dunk the brush. Dunk the brush, draw it back on a baby wipe, and then off you go. Because if you pause, you will get your brush will dry out because it's barely damp. And this technique works not with these pencils, but this technique is for Bible journaling, but only with Derwent watercolor pencils. Everything else, Neocolor 2s, Inktense pencils, any other watercolors I've got will go through the Bible pages, but Derwent watercolor pencils don't. And that's if I could only have 1 set of watercolor pencils, that's what I would have because they are amazing. So this brush is probably a bit too big for this, but again, activate it, and we're ending up with a tiny. Now, one thing you've got to do, and I didn't do it then, is clean the brush. But what normally happens, I'm going to change that because it's too dirty. Just bear with me a second, guys. I'm going to have to change that because it's I need a little pot. Now, this is the beauty of this, is this little pot here, as long as I can get my brush in it, this will do. You use out a jam jar lid. I used to use a jam jar lid. So all I'm doing is dunking the brush, immediately drawing it back, and then doing the colour straight away. Because if you stop and pause, the brush is only barely damp. Now, if you want a watercolour effect, you better from the brush. And then you can just activate that and make it as you want. But you have to clean the brush, and there's always a pinprick of colour. And then we dunk, draw back, and start again. And that means a pot of water. I used to use a jam jar lid when I was in the car, and that is just enough. So activate it and then move the colour about. And again, you have to just guess until you've played about. Now, I've played about, so I have a rough idea of which brush to use. And this is a very soft, very delicate way to work. And again, there is going to be a pinprick of colour every time because you want this clean brush, so you're not dirtying your water, so you can carry on. So again, we'll activate this one. And then if you bring it out, you get a lovely soft watercolour effect, but you're not using any water, or sorry, you're not using a watercolour traditionally, because this is paper and it won't take that whoosh of lots and lots of rubbing and scrubbing and watercolour. So this is to get a lovely watercolour soft effect, but not having all that water. So I do need a slightly bigger one for there. So again, I stop. So draw back and away you go. Now it's a lot easier to do it with a photocopy first because there's different shapes and it's very much like the chameleon pens. You can't stop. So it works in the opposite way. So we've got colour at the tip and all this is going to dilute. So you start with the strong colour and eventually it will dilute to nothing. So it took me a couple of years to get the right brush, I have to say, because I'd forgotten about the riggers. And again, you can just, and what you do is you just make sure, with a bit of practice, you get a lovely watercolour effect. And then if we go on that side, I have a highlight because I've got the tiniest amount of colour on there. This is a very, very therapeutic way to work. It's very still. Now I'm going to go for my smaller brush, my 10-0, because again, dunk, when you look at it, it's split, and then draw it back to a point and then just very, very gently tease. And you can do this all day, even if you've got pulley hands, because all the bounce, when you have a pencil, it's all that resistance is banging into your joints. But when you do this, it's all bounce, all the stress is in the little brushes. So you can actually do this all day. You can do it for hours because your hands never really get poorly because you're just stroking a page. And that's why I invented watercolouring, is for this, so that you can do this all day. And if you've got poorly hands, they never hurt. Because you're not gripping it with grim death like you have to when you're holding a pencil, because with a pencil you've got to be precise. Here we're just gently activating this and then drawing it out. So have you got any questions? So exactly what the rigger does, and this is why it has to be a rigger. Two reasons. I'll zoom right in and then I'll zoom back out. So sorry, it's going to be out of focus for a second. Sorry, not the wrong button. Oh gosh, that's not very good, is it? Where are we? Here somewhere. I want to be here. Just turn the camera up a bit. So dunk, draw back on a baby wipe, and then instantly go in there and manipulate the colour. Stop, clean that, so you get a pinprick every time. Draw back and go again. If you don't clean the brush every time, you will eventually pick up so much colour, because of course there's a lot of pigment, and you will end up with a flat colour. So if you don't want this effect, you will get a flat colour, but if you do, you clean it every time. And if you wipe it on the baby wipe, I use recycled face wipes, your water will never get dirty. So you can actually do this with a very small amount a jam jar lid is quite good. So dunk, draw back, activate the colour. Now, if you use a pinprick of colour, these will be even more delicate than they are. So I think I've done all the mushrooms. So there's a tiny one here. I'll zoom back out a little bit because it's the camera doesn't like a big zoom in. But you've got the gist of how we do it. So have you got any questions? So now I've gone back to my number 2. It's quite a big one, this one, because I want to, it'll stay wetter for longer. So if I've got a bigger space, it will take that gorgeous colour to almost nothing. Now, sometimes the riggers have got a mind of their own, but I'm not pushing it this way. I'm actually just scrubbing it very gently. And if you scrub it gently, it will only go in that position. If you kind of, if you're doing this with it, it goes everywhere. So we're being very gentle. We're just stroking the page, activating that green, and then manipulating it to almost nothing. And if you do that, you get the most lovely watercolor effect. And yet, as I say, you can do this on a Bible page because you've no water at all. That's dry now. Almost instantly you touch it, it's dry. It's slightly wetter with a bigger brush. But it's a very, very gentle way to work. So we don't have a big pot of water. We don't. You can do this with the Derwent watercolor brush, the watercolor brush. But I like using the rigger because it works in the same way. But I just like the rigger. You've got more control, so you get a lovely soft watercolor. Oh, thank you, Melody. So again, I've got a slightly bigger brush here. So, and again, I'm tempted to do that. If you touch, you get that little pinprick of colour, draw it back, and then away we go. And it's like little backwards and forward movements. And all the while, the rigger is releasing its water because that's what it's designed to do. These are for the old masters when they were doing the shipping riggers, and what they wanted to do is to have a line going right across. So all the sails had all the riggers. And what it would do is if it's full of colour, it will slowly release a small amount. And that's why it works on a Bible page, because it only releases a small amount. So what it's doing is it's diluting this colour. And because we only put a small amount on it, it's just releasing it. Now, it works better with a Derwent watercolour pencil, which I will do after this one, because the ink tints are very, very strong. And I must admit, I love my Derwent watercolour pencils. And a lot of my really delicate work when I first started, was using the Derwent watercolour pencils, either from my little book of watercolours or scratch colour on. And if you want to, this is where you can think about light and shade. This is where this effect, you can do that. We can think, I'll put the darkest at the bottom, activate all that colour. Now, once it's dried, you may get a little line because it's very, very strong as ink tense pencil. because it's an ink kind of binder instead of a watercolor binder. So that's why this, sorry, there's a big snotty pig there. So that's why this works slightly better with the watercolor pencils. But it's very nice to use with the Inktense, because you can have that very strong or you can have this very gentle. And as I say, it's very easy on the hands. So, and I thought mine would hurt today a bit, because I did a pencil drawing when we did art in the Abbey. I did a pencil drawing in the St Nicholas Centre. It's quite an old part of the Abbey. It's 950 years old this year. And if I do with a pencil, it normally wrecks the hands. So there's lots of little nooks and crannies in the Abbey, and they put this little lace on it. So I'll probably be doing that as either a watercolor or an oil, because I just love these little nooks and crannies, and then all this flaking, this kind of flaking brickwork that it just kind of crumbles. It crumbles because it's so old, bless it. Again, if you pause for breath to do it all again. So a barely damp brush. Oh, Frankie's pinched Alfie's place. That's going to be trouble. I don't know where Alfie is. I don't know where Alfie is. Oh, Alfie's behind on the sofa. Look, Alfie's behind. Alfie's there. Look, he's on the big sofa on his own. What's he doing? You've been a good boy, Alfie. Completely ignores me. Look. And then the big girl. She's on the big chair. She's on the big chair. Being a good girl, huh, Frankie? She can't settle. I think she gets too hot. She just does not settle very well, bless her. Sorry about the. You can sit up there. Go sit up there. There's a good girl. You can be up there. And that was a bit of a big brush for that small space. So again, you know, you practice and you realize what you're doing. So this will be a better space. So once you've activated that, you've got to carry on, because it's Inktense. So when it dries, it's dried. And again, that's the other reason I do like the Derwent watercolor pencils, because it's a watercolor, so you can rework it and as many times as you like. The trick is to let it dry, because it's a paper. This is a paper. It's not a watercolor paper. Of course, they are professional watercolors, so you can actually use them on watercolor paper. And I think I'm going to be doing some of those, because I'd forgotten about my pencils. I do love my pencils. Good girl. Oh, there's another toffee outside. So it's very, very quiet and very therapeutic, this. Now, really what you should do is, I've gone over the line there a little bit, is turn the page over. So when you're pushing the colour one way, turn it over to push the colour the other way. That would be better. But I've stuck mine down today, so it's down now. And if you do think you want some more colour, you can't rub too much, remember, because it's a paper, this, it's not a watercolour. You can go back and put a little bit more in as well, so you don't ever think this is it. You can build on it. You do need to leave it to dry, though. Even though it's dried, technically it's had a soaking, so it wants to have a rest. So I would do it the following day, give it 24 hours, and then you can go back in and do the same again, put more colour on it, scratch more colour on it, or do it direct, whichever's easiest. But I do like this quite delicate way to work. And I don't know what's behind there. Again, if I'm not sure, I leave it, because otherwise you can be caught out with these curvy drawings because they're so busy. And of course the rigger's picking colour up and then diluting it as we go along. So it works very similar to the chameleon pens, but in the opposite way. They work dark to light, and we're working. They work light to dark, and we're working light. We're working the other way. We're working dark and then taking it light, because that rigger is releasing colour every time. So don't twist. I'm going to go to a slightly smaller brush, because I won't get a watercolour effect if I use a bigger brush. You see, I used a smaller brush and I got a better highlight. Activate the colour and then move it across. With a bigger brush, you pick all the colour up at once, and all you're doing is pushing it around, and you don't get a particular watercolour effect. We'll go in the other room, darling. It's cooler in there. Go sit down. There's a good girl. So it's a very quiet way to work as well. But as I say, you can get away with the jam jar lid of water. I mean, I've still got tons and tons of water. This will last me for the whole page, this little pot. So it's very travel friendly. It's very portable. I normally sit on the sofa on a cushion tray. It's just a very, very easy way to work. Now, the only thing I will say that eventually this cloth will get very wet, because you're obviously drying the brush on it every time. So we've got a wet brush going to barely damp. So this will need squeezing out. So I have another jam jar lid with one of these wipes on it. So you can do 2 of those and then go back and you'll get a highlight on the top of there. Has anybody got any questions? I've got this one to do, so I'm going to go back to the slightly bigger brush again. This is where you do need to watch your brushes, and it's always good to have 3. It's the same with most things that I do. I do like 3 brushes. A thick, a medium, and a fine. And if we're very lucky, we can just push that there. Activate the colour and push it about. Now, if you push it about, I still got colour on here. And then every time you touch the middle, you're going to pick more colour up. So eventually you won't get a watercolour effect if I carried on, because I keep picking more and more colour. But this is a bigger brush and it's a bigger space. And again, it dries out very quickly because it's barely damp. This is a barely damp brush. It's not wet, it's barely damp. And it dries out after a few seconds. And that's why it works on a Bible page. So we push that about. And of course, we've got a pair of antlers there, or ears. So now I want to highlight on there. So I'm going to dunk the brush so it's clean so that I can get highlight. I have to dunk every time and clean the brush because I don't want a set color. I want to highlight on that leaf so it's changed. And this one here, push the color across. And you can feel if the brush is getting a bit dry, but it's a bigger brush as this, so you should get this from this leaf. And that's a lovely watercolor effect with hardly any water, and it's dry now. That's dry. It takes about 9 to 10 seconds to dry this particular way. So this is why you want to kind of have a barely damp brush. So again, what you can do is do this and then now go back and do another color. So you think, okay, then I've got a pale one and a green one. I want something else now. And this is when these little ears appear, and you can find things. So I've got a nice brick red for, and that's a waterfall. You see, I've just seen that that's a waterfall. So I'm going to put blue. And again, you can look at your blues, but I do have an iris blue, which I quite like. So I'll look at the blues. And I think my bluebells are going to be iris blue. So I can take my iris blue. It's the only blue that you can tell because it is a nice blue. And again, I just want a dot or just a line at the top. If you do a line, you will probably not be able to get rid of that line because it's an ink 10th. And I don't know if I have any more bluebells about. Sometimes you can always find other things. It's a lot easier to do all the green ones first. And I've found one that I've missed. So this is too big. I do want the smallest brush for this bluebell because it's the tiniest space. So again, dunk the brush and then just activate the color and then take it down. Dunk the brush, draw it back, activate the color, and it goes almost to nothing. So it's a very delicate blue. Again, we know what ink tints can do when it's strong, but this is what it can do when it's not. This is very pale. And that is extremely pale, that blue, very pale. So you might want to go back into it later, but again, it's almost like a baseline is this. So I'll take a brush because I've got this one down here now. And the green goes up there, so I may just have to steal that to do that, to make that very pale. Of course, the other thing you can do, I'll behave, is to, oh, that's the wrong one, here's focus green. The other thing you can do is this, so you dunk the brush, twist, but you don't have the same control, and it'll be very strong. See, that's very strong, is that? if you don't want it too strong. And eventually that bug, Alfie, no, Alfie, no. Right, I'll put you in the kitchen. Would you like to go in the kitchen? Alfie, Alfie. Alfie. Sorry, guys. Sometimes you have to put other ones in so you can see what happens to that one, which is there. And then this one is there. You get, sometimes you have to just work things out because they get a bit. Oh, thank you, Melody. Thank you. There was just a bit of going on. As we have, I think I like that Ionian green. Iron green, sorry, it's iron green. There is an Ionian as well. I think I'm going to put that one there and that one there. As I say, eventually that baby white will be so wet that you don't even dunk in the water. You just draw the brush back and it will pick up. And then you can go underneath, darker. I don't think we've got another leaf under there, have we? I didn't like that very delicate, just a bit too pale. So I hope this isn't too boring. It is literally watching paint dry, but it's because it's quite nice because you can see the drawing come to life. There's always a nice kind of way. Different people work in different ways, but sometimes it's quite nice to see it come as you're going along, because you might think, well, I'll do that. I like the paleness, so I won't put a very dark color on it. Or you might think, oh, it needs a bit of a dark color. So there's always different ways to do things. But because you've only got a tablespoon, I normally say a tablespoon of water. There's about a tablespoon of water in there. So, you know, you can get away with doing it in the car or on the best sofa. And again, once you've worked out all these, missed one. I now want hooker's green. Because I just want to put a little bit of dark on there. And we'll activate this one. And you get the most beautiful greens, all from one colour. So there's probably, on the ink 10s pencils, there's probably more than 10 shades or 10 tones. There's quite a lot. And it's just that gentle movement. Pick the colour up, and then the rigour makes it go pale. And then when you can feel when the brush gets too dry, activate the colour and take it to almost nothing, which is quite nice. And after you've done a page, whether it's a photocopy or a page you don't really like, you get used to how wet the brush needs to be, or how dry the brush needs to be. Because if it's too wet, you'll get a flat colour. And if not, you'll get a watercolour effect. Got a couple over this side as well. So it doesn't take long. It's about a couple of hours, but you wouldn't be able to do a watercolor on this paper because it wouldn't allow it. So it's fairly quick, but it's not the other way that I work. It's the really fast way. This is slightly different. So it's very similar to touch and go, but it's not as quick. If that makes any sense. I hope that makes sense, guys. And again, this is where you get your antlers, and once you've gone round things, other things pop out, so you know what you're doing. So I need a little bit of green to make the antler stand out a bit. And it's still pale, but I can just about just touch the tip of that. And of course, now that's popped up now, so we know we can see it now, just by touching the end of the brush. Now, eventually, I almost filled that one in then. That's the other antler. So go to the middle-sized brush and do the flowers. fit the colour and do each individual petal, because that's where I've put the spot of colour. And the riggers do behave quite well. And I do like sometimes working with these kind of pastel colours. Now, I did get my out. Again, it works. You can get some lovely effects with the pastel pencils. I think I did that in the Hannah Carlson. Sorry, not the camera then. So there's some other different flowers. So a bigger brush, and of course when you've done that one, you've realised you've missed one. So I've missed the yellow, the green one. So what I need to do is medium brush, pick up some colour from the tip of the pencil and put it in. I mean, you can work that way, but you don't have as much control. I didn't get a nicer watercolour effect as I did there, because that's what I did. There's kind of a, I was going to do the waterfall next before I forget. So we'll do the waterfall. So again, have a quick look at the blues. There's a bright blue. I think bright blue looks quite nice. Oh, we have a lagoon actually colour, but I think bright blue. Or the other thing you can do is you can put a little bit of bright blue, and you can do this with the Derwents. That's why I love the Derwent watercolour pencils. You can put so many colours together and then blend them. And a bit of that green on there. And of course, you don't know what you've done until you get your brush. So we want the medium brush for this one. And start at the top, because we want that to be kind of the palest. Bring that down. Actually, I'll go with a bit bigger brush. So I think they're mountains. there's some creatures there, so you could pick out the creatures next. Done that green. I'll have there's a leaf green we haven't had yet, so we'll have a leaf green for these. And I missed a couple of those. They can be kind of leaf green. I mean, you would probably do this anyway if you weren't doing this particular style. And I'm going to do that very pale, that one. So again, the slightly bigger one. And sorry guys, I don't know what Alfie's barking at. It's just... Alfie, shush. Good boy. Go to the medium-sized brush because this is a smaller space now. So activate the color and then just like the chameleon pens, but backwards, working dark to light. Activate the color, and then the dampness of the rigger is making it paler and paler and paler. So you end up with a lovely watercolor effect. And if you want to just touch the end of that, the little fox behind is going to stand out a bit. So, oops, it's a bit too wet now. It's getting a bit wet, is that? So just be careful that we don't touch that. Wood. Oh, I found a snake. Oh, I thought that was going that way. It isn't. It's going that way. You see, so that one goes under there, so it doesn't come out again. Ah, that's one. It's getting a bit crafty with these Kirby's because they're and I actually like the fact that that's quite dark, goes to nothing. That's quite nice, is that? And there's a couple over here. Oops, very wet. Now that the napkin is getting very wet. The kitchen, the baby wipe is getting very wet now, so we don't need to go into the water. We just need to just touch. Oh, wet nose on elbow. That's not nice, thank you. She wants attention. And the highlight changes quite a lot as well. So I didn't dunk in the water this time. All I did was just wipe it on the baby wipe, because the baby wipe's now wet. What is wrong with you today, miss? No, get down. I know what she wants, but I don't want to let her. I can't let you out, darling. She wants to go out. So, oh, she's so good. She's not like Alfie. So I should be back in a second, guys. I just have to go let little miss out. Oh, hi, Darla. Welcome to Bonnie's Designs. Hi, Sandra. I just can't stand up. I can't. I just can't. I can't let the dogs out today. You have to do an Alfie, I'm afraid. And she's not. She's so clean, bless her. Right, I'm just going to show you this. So you end up with your pot back full of water again. And it is slightly discoloured, but only slightly. And then your baby wipes the same. I do use my face wipes, but I just couldn't bring them today. I've had to bring everything in this room, and I can't leave things in this room because it gets very hot, and I'm worried that they get damaged. So, oh, I've got a big one up there to do. I'm going to use the medium-sized brush for this because although it's a bigger leaf, the little ones are individual. So you've got to clean it every time because you pick up colour, and if you want that watercolour effect, or the other way to do it is do all the downward leaves first, and then when you go back to do the top leaves, they're paler. So you get a nice watercolour effect. Oh my goodness me. But imagine that's going to affect the camera, guys. So this video might not see the light of day. It's quite warm in this room as well, so this brush is drying out quite quickly. But we've got a bit of a so we've got a couple of caterpillars. I think there's a Chinese green in this one. And they call it sherbet lemon. So I'm going to do this sherbet lemon, this one. Just a line. I put too much on, so I didn't get my watercolor effect. Just need to pick up a little bit of colour there. So I think that's the darker one, isn't it? That did that one. A light olive. It should be red, I think. I think we're about halfway there, actually. I think we're about halfway there. No, I'm in the studio. I'm in the studio, but we've got a beautiful day today. We've got a gorgeous day. So we can hear birdies and the Alf Master, who is down there. What are you doing, Alf? Alfie? Ignoring me, as per usual. So I'm in the supposedly studio. I've decided I've reclaimed it. Oh my, can't work this thing today. Yes, I'm using the intense pencils and scratching colour. So I'm getting up, but I'm using the riggers so that I can have a watercolour effect instead of doing them full strength. If you just use that and straight on, it would be full strength. Settle down, please, miss. So it's been an hour and 50 minutes. So an afternoon's work, you could do that. What red have I got for the fox? We need a reddy brown, so it would be with the browns here. So we've got, this is quite a fox colour. There's a mustard and there's orange earth. That's a reddy brown. And I don't have those colours near me, I don't think. So take that off. So if you can see, oops. If if you can see the watercolor effects. But with no water. And that's what you get when you use a rigger. You get a lovely watercolor effect. It won't work with any other paintbrush. It's with a liquid watercolor. You can use the Derwent #1 water brush, but because you have to kind of jiggle it and activate it and then move it, if you did that with a water brush, the same with a watercolor brush or any other paintbrush, when you touch, water washes out, and we don't want that. We want this to be flat. So that's why the riggers activate it but slowly release dampness, and that's what we need. We need to activate that little bit of color we scratched on and then activate it and spread it about and then take it from dark to light. And I just find it a really nice, simple way to work. There's a lot of these frond things. I'm not sure what they are. There's some more big leaves there. I've got this light olive colour, so I'll do that one and that one and that one. Sorry guys, it's a nice day, so all the dogs are out today. All the dogs are out. So activating that colour and then manipulating it within the shape until you get almost nothing. And then if you want to make it darker, you just touch underneath and we've got a shadow. But it's a very delicate way to work. It's opposite of hydrous and peerless. So dunk the brush and then activate that colour, and then we should just get that tip behind that duck. And hubby made me a cup of tea a while ago and I haven't drunk it yet. So we've got some more flower, more foliage to do. There's some more flowers up here. So I wanted to keep a pinky. Was it that one? There was another flower that I saw and I thought I'd do a bit of a pink. So I like fuchsia, so I think I'm going to do a fuchsia here. Obviously you can do whichever colours you like. And then we've got the small brush for this one. This is the 10-0 because we want a bit of a watercolour effect. And as long as you're pushing with these gently, you will get, they will behave themselves with the riggers. If you start doing this with them, they go in all different directions. But if you kind of have them at an angle and just gently push, that's when you get that nice effect. Has anybody got any questions? So thanks for stopping by, guys. Hope you're all okay. So it's got lots more flowers underneath. There's this kind of fluffy stuff here, so I think I might do that kind of a real dark. There's a beach green. I think I'm going to do a beach green on here, and I think once I've done that, the everything else will kind of. Oops, I can't use a pencil particularly well today. Now, sometimes you can do it where Kirby Roseanne's put the hatching and cross hatching to make a dark. So it makes it quite easy for you to actually do that. So, but you need a bit of a point for that. So. Oh, that's a rock, is that? So there's a bit of greenery. And then that's green under there. And again, we've got the rock. And then we've got these creatures. So you've got to be careful you don't colour one of these in. Make sure it is actually grass. I think that's. And then when you start doing the underneath, things become a bit better. And then everything pops up. I've just found some clouds. I didn't see any clouds. We've got some clouds in there. It's a bit of grass, and we've also got some rocks as well. And I just find this is a slightly easier way to work. And I've just found another pale leaf. There's something. What it is. I normally leave it if I don't know what it is, because you can always go back to it, but it's difficult once you've coloured something in and realised actually that's not what I wanted. So I'm going to take the big brush. Oops, it's too wet. You can tell if it's too wet because it won't pick up the colour. And then manipulate that colour out. Now, I could do with a little bit in there. So if you do take strong colour, you won't get your watercolour effect because it's too strong. But under there, it would be dark anyway, but it won't be the same. So if you want consistency, you need to scratch a bit of colour in there. Oh, bye, Melody. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for stopping by. Samantha's just let them out, so they've been out now, so Alfie should settle down now. Alfie should settle down now. She's ever so good, the new girl. She did know she wanted to go out. It's just I can't stand up for long, so I couldn't let her out. She's not like Alfie, who thinks it's funny to sneak a tittle out. So this green should look quite nice when we've got kind of a bit of a background. So I'm going to put, I'm going to look for a stone colour or something that like, and that's quite a nice one. I'm not sure if I want a grey. Oh, I've got antique. There's antique grey, charcoal, and some nice, you see, these are all the blacks and greys. Charcoal's quite nice, but these are warmer. The black is actually quite nice. And I put my blacks here. This is the Derwent sketching. It's what you put your sketch pad in here. So again, the other way to work with these is to scratch colour, and then you can reactivate it. So I've got a chopping board in here, and then on this side I've got the darks, because you can get 60 colours on here. On this, you can get 60. I think it holds 60. So of course I've got 72. So I've got my outline of my black and white here, and then all the other darks here, browns and blacks. So I wanted, there's Indian ink, but Chinese ink, charcoal grey, black. I want the black because it's the warmer, it's quite a warm black. And if I do it here, I think it's going to kind of really, where there's some cross hatching, And what it will do is pop the background. So activate it and then move it about. So it's like a purple, almost a purple grey is that. I've got a lovely highlight on there. Again, with this one, it's very dark. Start at the bottom, and then the rigger takes it light. So we have a natural highlight on there. Same with this one. Stroke it down, a natural highlight. This is going to be very dark under here. And if I'm very clever, I can go around everything and make things pop out. So our lovely delicate colours. I'm going to have a bit of a dark background. Don't want it too drastic because it looks silly, but a bit of darkness will make them pop out. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. If you want a darker one, you can do a darker one. But I'm only putting it where Kirby Rosanne has done the extra lines to show dark, so that's quite dark. And then we've got pale. The brush just made that one, so I need to go to the bigger brush. I think maybe activate it and then drag it down. Again, if I'm not sure, I kind of leave it because I can always go back. I don't want to go too dark, but I do want to define those lovely pale colours. Oops. Bear with me a second. So this could be quite dark in here. And again, we've got that one. And probably where it's going to be dark and there's no stones, I will do darker green, I think. No, you might want to wait until you've coloured everything else in first, but this might show up some of the things that I've missed, so we'll do this. Missed. can be as bold or as light as we want to be. So again, it's a nice steady pace is this. It's a nice steady pace to go at. You're not rushing, it's not a race. You're just picking little bits off as you see them, and we're thinking about colour, but because we work in this way, we don't have to think about light and dark and shadows and things. I'm going to try and get this to pop out as well. And if you touch the tip, you're going to get very strong colour. That's a green, actually, we don't want that. So go around this dragonfly. And then we've got a leaf and a shrub there. This is quite dark in here. This is where you can think, well, it would be quite dark in there. So this is when all the flowers start to pop out again. And to me, that looks a bit like wood, but there's a butterfly there that we want to pop out. So it's just a case of putting the stones in, and then we go back and do the foliage again, and go back and do the stones until we think it looks about right. And I kind of like this grey, this black. It's, although it's a black, it's a warm black, and because I'm using it so faint, it's like a grey. So I kind of like this. This is where you find you've missed leaves and petals off and things. Hi, Bong. So it's coming along. It just take a little bit of time. We've got those green leaves up there as well. couple of hours. So let's do that. Right. So, right. I did this one in pencil last time. So just see what's to do, and then there's enchantments here, but I like to do stronger colours. So I might use the same technique, but Inktense blocks, because I normally work quite pale, and these were quite strong colours. I could do the blackberries. I might do this in pastel, actually. If I've got a clip that would sit there. I think I have a clip. So if I could clip that, that would sit. So I'm going to go get a clip. I'm just going to have something. So I'm going to finish this video, and then I'm going to come back because it's 2 hours. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to do that one in the blocks, because I think I want some strong colours in that one. And I can get some nice strong colours. And then I'm going to do an in pastel pen. But I like the blocks. I like the blocks. But I could get a lovely blend with the blackberries. Could get a really nice blend. I might do pastels, actually. I might do pastels because I love the pastel pencils, the Derwent pastel pencils, because you can get really nice berry with them. I remember the other ones I did. I have no idea where my watercolour. I have no idea where my watercolour books are. Isn't that strange? I have no recollection of where I've put them. Oh, hi, Bungle. I cannot find any books. That is so strange. How weird. They're not in here at all. I have no books. I've got no colour books. They've all disappeared. Oh, I know what they are. They're on the other side. So I'll finish this, guys, and I'll come back and do that one in part 2. So that was the end. That was the end of part